Hello everyone. This is the episode 28 of SoLeadSaturday. Our today's guest is a data scientist, and rather than me introducing her, let's hear from her career journey. How did she find her passion and interest in the data and managing to be one of the leaders in the data science field? So welcome Shrilata. I really appreciate your time on my SoLeadSaturday podcast, and I would like to hear from you. What do you do right now, and
Mhm.
how did you find your interest in the data science?
Yeah, all great questions. So, just in terms of a quick introduction, I am a data scientist right now and have been in the field for more than 7 years now. In terms of my journey and my interest in the field, right, I did my undergrad in computer science. So,
Mhm,
I started off in the realm of programming per se.
mhm.
I was an application developer for about 2 years right after graduating from undergrad. And sort of at that point in time, I was heavily coding within Java and SQL and, more on the business intelligence side of things, building SQL reports and things like that. But I got, exposure to a little bit of, forecasting models and how they're used in the financial industry and things like that. So at that point in time, I was very curious to know how these models are built, or how do you even, come up with a prediction.
Mhm.
Since I was only exposed to programming at that point in time and a little bit of statistics, I sort of wanted to explore that whole area more. So one thing led to the other, and I did my master's in analytics from Northwestern University.
Mhm.
And that's sort of where my analytics or data science journey basically started. And I have been working as a data scientist for the last 5+ years now. Um, and it's been a great journey. Like, I've absolutely enjoyed every aspect that comes in the field. Being from working in the weeds of the data or coming up with insights and presenting them. I kind of like how the full 360 of data science comes together.
Oh, that's great actually. Great to hear from you. And I feel like you entered into the field at the right time. As you said that you are in the area like plus years. So that's a great thing actually. A lot of people miss that opportunity to being in the same kind of a technology which is in a boom.
Hmm.
Opportunity to work in the same kind of area. So good
Yeah.
to you. And moving towards our next question is about, what specific learnings, as you mentioned that you did masters in the data analytics, so which
Hmm.
kind of a right step towards your interest, and what specific learning from academics do you think that are always useful in your day-to-day activities in job role?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think, Vaishali, the point that you made, about the timing, that's definitely been a factor in terms of the growth I have experienced along the years. And I would say, like, when I started my master's program, in terms of what I learned in academics, right, has evolved a lot in the last 5 to 7 years. Like, I have been in touch with students from Northwestern right now, and I've seen what their course structure is like. It's amazing to see how it's been evolving.
Mhm.
But specifically in terms of the things that stood out to me within the academics realm was getting three things, I would say, actually. First one, getting an extremely good handle on statistical and probability principles. Like, that sort of lays the foundation
Mhm.
for data science. So even understanding something as basic as how does a hypothesis testing work, right? What
Mhm.
does a p-value even mean? Why do we care about it so much, and things like that. So that foundation to me was very important. The
Mhm.
second thing, sort of, a little bit diving from there, would be insight into how predictive algorithms, all algorithms in general within data science work, right? Be it even a simple regression model, what is it that encompasses it when you tweak certain variables? How does the model change? How does accuracy change? What variables are selected? Sort of understanding the fundamentals behind them was extremely good in an academic environment, because I would definitely say this: within an academic environment, you kind of tend to get clean data.
Mhm.
So that hard work is done, so you can concentrate on looking at these fundamentals and things like that. And I find that to be very important to get a good handle on at that point in time, because
Mhm.
once you're roped into actual work,
Mhm.
you're going to spend more than 50% of your time wrangling data and just battling with it. So it's important to sort of have those concepts already ingrained. um, Sorry, I went into a tangent a bit. That was the second one, I would say. The third one that I really liked during my master's program, specifically even during my undergrad, the whole idea behind using visualizations to communicate a story or share what the insights or findings are from an analysis. Um, and this happens even on a day-to-day basis, right? You're working in the weeds of the data, and then you sort of forget what the bigger question was. So the ability to take a step back, understand what the bigger question was, and then be able to communicate those findings to a non-technical audience, I guess that skill set is something that is very important to hone. And I guess within academia and within courses in universities or even online courses that are offered these days, right, there is a very good data visualization component that I would emphasize, looking into and picking up those skills.
Yeah, you mentioned very valid point here actually. When you learn into academics, actually you learn a lot more on the technology side, and
Hmm.
definitely you miss that aspect of how you can convey the results to non-technical person
Right.
actually. And when it comes to business, actually it's very important that you should be able to communicate those insights irrespective of these technological terms, like as you mentioned, whether it is a null hypothesis or p-value, they don't consider it as like valuable for them.
Yeah.
When it comes to their metrics, they are more or interested to understand it as a business aspect of it. So definitely that is something useful insight. And moving towards our third
Mhm.
question is about, once you did your academic learning, what
Mhm.
additional efforts did you put to learn about data science from your side?
That's a great question. That is something that is on an ongoing basis, I would say. Just once academia was done, right? The main part that I put emphasis on in learning was, when I'm doing my analytics work, how is that translating into a business impact?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Depending on the use case that you're working on, right, they can be translated into hard dollars, where you can come up with, was it a cost savings type of a project where your findings led to some cost saving, or was it revenue generation? Can you quantify that and bridge that gap to be able to say what value you're bringing to the table? But that being said, that is sometimes hard to do, but also makes your work very rewarding at the end of the day when you're seeing what that impact was. So, post academia, I guess that's one thing that I try to hone. So that's one aspect. The second, I would say, just going back to what we were discussing before, how over the years, in the last decade especially, how data science has evolved, right? Um, like initially when we started off, a lot of folks coded in base R, base Python, and things like that. Now, as the data sizes are much larger than what they were, that, or we had access to, and things like that. There is more effort, emphasis on understanding how can these models or the analysis that we are doing can be built at scale.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one aspect that I'm learning and sort of imbibing in myself in terms of my skill sets. How do I build my models at scale? And also thinking from a software developer point, right? At some point in the whole process of data science, you've got to put that software developer hat on and be like, how am I going to productionalize the analysis that I'm doing, be it a predictive model or unsupervised learning type of a thing? How does this go into production? What are the best practices that I can follow along the way, so that this is a scalable and a robust solution? So, and that sort of is an iterative process. Since technologies are evolving, there is something new every other week or month. So you got to sort of be on top of it and see how best you can improvise along the way.
Yeah. So yeah, that is true actually. Once you are done with a sample data set with the feasibility or benefit analysis testing, definitely that is always the question that how that can be implemented on the larger scale and what would
Yeah,
be the major disadvantages or advantages along that path
right.
actually. So yeah, I can also relate to that. Moving towards your new achievement which you recently
Mhm.
published, your book in the data science interviews. So
Mhm.
tell us something more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book that I'm writing is titled "Be the Outlier."
Mhm.
It's essentially a comprehensive guide on how you can ace data science interviews. A little bit of background to this, right? I guess when I started my data science journey, there was information available. I wouldn't say that there wasn't any, but I found a lot of interview material in the form of question banks and things like that, right? Like what type of questions you can expect and the answers to that and things. And there was a lot of material out there for software engineering type of roles, like how do you crack a coding interview.
Mhm.
From a If you were to be interviewing in a product company, it's always good to sort of see how does a product manager think, so you can sort of understand the whole picture behind the whole analysis that you might be doing as a data scientist. So there were books around product management interviews and books around software development and things like that, but I didn't essentially find like a one-stop shop for data science. And after I graduated from my master's program, I kept in touch with the folks who were graduating after me and my friends and things like that. And we sort of always exchange notes as to what is it that the industry is looking for right now in terms of skills. How is the industry testing you on those skills? It's evolved so much, right? Um, so I made those notes. I used them myself. I exchanged those things, but I was like, what I have in front of me is good material. I want to sort of shape it up well and sort of do the whole journey and make it into a book. So this sort of thought started early 2019, and last year around summer is when I started writing the whole book, and it's set to be published in July of this year by New Press. So almost through the whole process now, and excited to see it finally take a physical shape and come in my hand. But to give a little more insight into what the book has, right? The book essentially talks about what are the different roles within data science that you can expect, because titles across companies differ a lot. There are certain nuances in the job description that will tell you exactly what they're looking for. So it's sort of key to look at those nuances and structure your preparation accordingly. So I talk a little bit about how you can identify those things
Mhm.
and also see where you're at, where is it that you want to go. So if there is a delta that you want to bridge, what are those skill sets that you can bring in? And more from a tactical standpoint, thereon, the book dives into different subsections, specifically, very commonly asked machine learning type of questions. So in the book itself, right, I not only attempt to give a sample answer, but I'm trying to put a framework or a structure together that any prospective interviewee can use, to answer those questions. So that even if you encounter a question that's probably not in the book, there is a framework that you can follow to answer some of those questions. So I'm talking about different areas like machine learning modules, probability and statistic type of questions, programming questions, things like that, and also diving a little bit into case questions, because a lot of times I've seen within data science interviews, the question starts off with just like a one-liner, like the revenues have been declining. What do we do? A little bit of supporting data. So it's a mix of how do you think about the problem, how do you ask for more data, what assumptions do you make, and how to highlight the metrics to measure the question being asked. So you go into that and slowly you find yourself coming up with statistical methods that you think would be good, and that's where the interviewer may dive deep into it. So how to handle those things and also summarize the solution to the problem that was asked. So I sort of discuss some of those things and talk about different type of questions that you may encounter. Like within a consulting company, they might be phrased a little differently. Product companies, they could be a little bit different. So how those differences are and what a sample answer for that could look like. That's one section. The other one I was just going to say quickly was just talking about how resumes, behavioral interviews within data science can change, right? Just given the whole nuances, how different it can be. So the second half of the book sort of talks into more of those softer aspects of an interview process.
Mhm. That's great, actually. It sounds pretty interesting to me. And the way you are mentioning that it is more about building that framework, that what are the touch points within the data science area, actually, how the interview process can be proceeded. Because I have gone through when I was working as a data scientist, I know that when I used to attempt the interviews, actually, it is always like they will touch. Some people will ask like, I don't know, statistics questions in the first round.
Yeah.
Like, what hypothesis would you use, and which value would you look for, or how did you come for the insight saying that this male gender has the average height more than the female gender, or something like that. So definitely it is very important actually. I can also relate to it, that it's very important to build that framework and the thought process to get into the data science. And also every data scientist role or any other aspect of the data field, any other roles, data analyst, data engineer, every role has a different roles and responsibilities. So every organization goes with their own kind of a requirement. So there is always a preparation actually behind that. So I think it is going to be useful for a lot more people, actually students especially. So definitely looking forward to that. And I would be happy to actually, once it get published, please let me know, and I would be happy to make an announcement.
Awesome. That I'll definitely take you up on that.
Okay. So next question is around, actually you mentioned a couple of things like a programming aspect as well, R, Python. So which is your programming, like a favorite programming language that you always prefer, and why?
That's a great question. Favorite is, so okay, since I sort of started a little bit earlier, right? I started in R quite a lot, so I am pretty fluent programming in R and Spark R and things like that. But there is a shift towards Python a little bit, just given the scaling aspect, where there are nuances where Python is better versus R and vice versa too. But I'm definitely seeing that shift, and that's somewhere I'm trying to, pick up the skill set as well, more and more. I have been learning PySpark quite a lot in the last couple months, and I'm going to say I like it a lot now. So I'm going to come to a point where I might start preferring, PySpark more than R. I feel like right now my winner is R because of comfort level, but just from a scalability standpoint and things like that, I find Python to have more advantages these days. But that being said, I guess SQL sort of is this silent winner. I would say it's like the slow and steady wins the race kind of a thing, where a lot of the initial analysis that you need to do, right? SQL is almost always a winner and things like that. You need something quick and dirty, or you even need something scalable. SQL has the answers, to data analytics type of questions. So that's always going to have this soft corner, I guess, for me in terms of likability. So
no, SQL is definitely, no doubt, is like foundation, and it is like a must have skill. And then after over that, you can choose any programming language on the basis of the business requirement. That's very true. Moving towards another favorite question of mine, actually, I asked all the data scientists who came on my podcast that which is your favorite machine learning algorithm and why?
Oh wow, okay, that's a good one. Name too. That's okay.
Fine, actually.
And I'll sort of dive into why too as well. I have been working quite a bit with XGBoost, and we all kind of know from a machine learning perspective, if you're into data science, that it's a great model in terms of giving you a good lift in accuracy compared to the other techniques that are already there. It has inbuilt advantages of having cross validation, not overfitting, and things like that. Like, it has the ability to control those things based on hyperparameters that you supply to the model. So it's highly configurable and very accurate. And the reason, I guess, why I mentioned two is because a lot of these machine learning models, the choice of it depends on the use case that you want. A close favorite of mine, is just simple, plain old regression, and to build on top of that, a little bit more regularized regression, be it ridge, lasso, or elastic. I sort of have a liking towards them because, one, it gives you the ability to look at the coefficient values. So you're able to tell, what particular variable is influencing my prediction at what level. You're able to sort of, look at that and sort of scenario plan in a way when you look at those variables and their coefficient values. So it gives you insight at that level. And just in terms of ridge, lasso, and elastic net within R, right, it allows you to control your beta values. So in case your certain coefficient should be within a certain range based on the business insight that you have, it lets you do that. So having that flexibility to tune those hyperparameters, I guess, like these both models have sort of been my close favorite.
Mm-hmm. That's good, actually. Thank you for sharing. And I heard something different, actually. Otherwise, random forest is like a winner. Boost, actually, a couple of people said that. So I can that random. It is just the advanced version of random forest.
It is. Had you asked me this question in 2018, I think I would have said random forest for sure.
Random forest or XGBoost, that's fine.
Yep.
Yeah. Next question is along, actually, what kind of a recommendations would you like to give to the audience on the basis of like a book, online courses, or any tools that you would like to encourage people to learn?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in terms of online courses, right, I recently was reading a blog that spoke about how you can build your own curriculum, like a full-fledged master's program by basically doing some of these online courses. Like, you may not need to just, go into a full-time school and things like that. So that was an interesting perspective, that I wanted to quickly share. um, but in terms of like the various courses and things like that, I think like DataCamp has quite a few of good courses. Udemy has like these popular course websites, definitely have those. And what I sort of keep going back to in terms of when I'm looking at these courses again is like the foundations of algorithms or basics of the programming language and things like that. Like those are great starting points for anyone starting out, I would say. And one thing that I would definitely want to call out is, just given the current COVID situation, a lot of these platforms have made their courses free or at a highly discounted rate, right? I've been seeing like at least 80 to 90% discount on most courses and things like that. So this is probably the best time to sort of check some of those boxes off if you have some trainings that you really wanted to do. So definitely wanted to quickly mention that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Actually, it is very, very useful advice to have, like, insight. So, moving towards leadership style truly shows that, you are a leader because you are taking some extra steps to lead you the area you are interested in. So, how would you describe your leadership style and any specific leader that you would always follow or admire?
That's a good one. I guess my leadership style is sort of more on the collaborative front, in the sense that I value relationship building a lot. So when working in a team, right, I do value everyone's point of view and an open discussion, and trying to see what value each of us bring to the table, and then seeing what the next steps from there are. So I would say sort of a little bit on the collaborative front, in terms of style. In terms of a person who sort of influences me in their leadership style, I would say it's been Indra Nui. For some reason, I have closely followed her in the last few years, a lot of her talks and things like that. One of the things that she always shares and brings to the table is her ability to balance, you have a work life balance, and how she manages being at such a high position but also balancing her family. So I find her not to be just a strong leader, at work, but also a very compassionate and a strong leader at home. And that sort of shows in the way she leads and demonstrates, using examples. So it's always nice to hear of those examples, and from a home front as well, right? The insights that she says of how she manages. As I'm growing older, I feel like I'm relating to quite a lot of those than I thought I would have.
Yeah, that's true actually. And some people find like, one of my guests gave me an advice, like, when I was asking about how people juggle between finding their interest and a career path. So he was saying that there can be fusions as well. Like due to data science,
Hmm.
there are a lot of people can find the fusion between two. So if you are
Hmm.
interested in the music, you can get into that kind of analytics actually in the data space.
Right.
So that is kind of a thing that when you are interested in something, you can always try to find out the ways
Yeah,
how you can keep up with that interest. And thank you
absolutely.
so much for sharing the leadership style.
Yeah.
Moving towards the last question, any wise tip or advice would you like to give to the students or professionals who are looking to get into this data field and start their career journey or grow in their career in this specific field?
I guess one piece of advice from my end would be, to always keep the curiosity hat on. That's what helps me all the time. Because when I'm working through anything, right, when I question the why, that's when I'm able to easily answer the how, from how and what from there on, right? Like every time when I'm when I'm doing something, if it's a task driven work, I'm like, why am I doing this? What is the, that it's going to solve, and things like that. Why is it needed? When I ask those type of questions and I'm curious, I'm able to, follow through, and deliver well, and think through the whole process. So, and that's not even in terms of daily work, or, I would say it's in general, an advice that I would love to share, that you're curious, you're going to explore more, you're going to try and find out more about something. It could be related to data science or not. But if you're curious, you're going to want to dig deeper into, one subject and know more about it. So sort of that curiosity can lead to more knowledge building and things like that.
Yeah, and I totally agree on that point. Actually, that if you are curious, definitely you ask more questions to yourself and explore more from your side.
Yep.
So, be curious is very important. Being curious is a very important aspect when you are working in any field. And I completely agree on your point. So, thank you so much for sharing, and really, really appreciate your time on
Of
being
course.
on my Solid Saturday podcast, as well as good luck with your book, and definitely, like, inform me. Actually, I would be happy to share that in my community, as
Hmm.
well as audience. Hope you will also find this episode useful, and as I always say, until we meet, happy leading. Let's live together. Stay safe. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.